I taught Bible at a Christian school for 11 years. My job was to help students understand truth. Truth with a capital T. You know, the kind of truth that's absolute. True for all people, for all times, and in all places. My teaching method was pretty simple. I talked to my students, they took notes, and then regurgitated my words back to me on a test. For about 5 or 6 years, I thought I was a pretty great Bible teacher. But then my students started pushing back. They accused me of making them write down my beliefs in order to get a good grade. And then I realized that my students didn't really own my version of the truth. So I changed the way I taught. Instead of talking at my students, I began to ask them questions about their beliefs. Immediately, our discussions became livelier, and kids began to take ownership of what they believed. Through these questions, my students discovered things for themselves I could never have taught them through lectures and taking notes. I have to admit though, I'm usually a lecturer. I want to believe that I'm comfortable with questions, but I don't often use them well as a teaching method. And questions are messy. They're uncertain. You just don't know where they're going to end up. Deep down, they probably scare me. I think they probably scare most of us. When I read the Bible, I see a God who is totally comfortable with questions. In the Garden of Eden, after Adam and Eve eat from the tree they're not supposed to, God doesn't accuse them, destroy them, or lecture them. Instead, He asks them questions. Where are you? Who told you you were naked? Did you eat from the tree I told you not to eat from? What is this you have done? God knows the answers to all these questions. He's all-knowing. He's not going to discover anything new from what Adam and Eve tell him. But He asks the questions anyway. No one really knows why He asks, but I think He wants Adam and Eve to discover the answers for themselves. Jesus follows this same pattern. When He approaches people who are spiritually confused or struggling with what they believe, He asks them questions. When Jesus runs into the woman at the well, He asks her, "Will you give me a drink?" When He runs into the blind guy along the road who's been blind from birth, He asks him, "What do you want from me?" To the man at the sheep gate who's been crippled for 38 years and can't get in the water, "Do you want to get better?" Jesus seems most comfortable when He's asking questions. But today, we His followers seem least comfortable when we're asking them. We're more about answers. At best, we treat questions like they're unimportant. At worst, we treat them like they're dangerous. Last February, 2 friends and I began meeting with a group of guys, inviting them into spiritual conversation. No bait and switch. They knew what they were in for, spiritual questions. A cute place. And a year later, we're still at it. And we're still asking questions instead of giving answers. Just recently we asked, what's the offer Jesus makes? One of my friends, Peter, went home and looked up the answer on the internet. And he came to the next meeting with his Google-generated 1-page gospel presentation and slapped it on the table. Oh crap, what did he find? It turns out, God had led him to Charles Swindoll's 1-page explanation of the gospel. And as we talked, Peter said, "I've never heard it put this way before." If we hadn't decided to invite our friends into conversation, if we had never asked the question, then Peter would have never heard the gospel message this way. Now he has. Jesus works best in questions. When we invest in someone else's beliefs, when we care enough to ask, we show them that we love them. Questions build a bond of trust that allows deeper and more significant conversations to continue and grow. Who needs you to ask them a good question today? Not a leading question where you're fishing for the right answer, but a real question that allows the Holy Spirit to enter in. So let's follow Jesus' lead and walk with our friends and neighbors into the unknown, where we can encounter the living God in a new way through the power of questions.